Hello, welcome to Nerdist Book Club. I'm Rachel Heine, and I just broke a glass right before we started. Everyone's having a time. Joining me as always are my lovely, lovely friends and co-hosts Hector Navarro and Maude Garrett. Welcome, y'all. Thank you up. How's
Beautiful.
everyone?
Better now.
Good. What are you drinking, Maude? What is that? Water?
You'd think, but no, to the untrained eye. This is actually a grapefruit white claw.
I feel like I liked that. There's one that I really didn't like, but it's been a while.
Grapefruit.
I
Ruby.
feel like that one I liked. I'm not sure. I know Lee has strong feelings about White Claw. And welcome to everyone at home. Thank you for joining us. It's same time, same place, but it's a little brighter out if you're in the States where we, for some reason, change the time all the time.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are just joining us, this is Nerdist Book Club. It's exactly what it sounds like. An online interactive book club where the three of us and everyone in the chat talk about what we're reading this month. And we are wrapping up our final week of Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind. We've been covering this over the last 6 weeks. And so if you haven't caught the other episodes yet, you can go back on the Nerdist channel and watch those and then come back and join us, because tonight we also have a very special guest that we're speaking to later. Maude, do you want to tease that a little bit before we dive in?
I would love to. Straight after this, we're going to be joined by the author himself, Patrick Rothfuss, over at Geekbomb's YouTube page. We're going to be live there. Hector and Rach, you're coming along for the ride. And if you're there and you ask questions, Patrick will be able to see those questions and we'll be answering some of them along as we go. So that'll be really, really great.
I'm very excited to chat with him. He seems so smart. I feel a little intimidated.
Yeah, but he's so welcoming.
I'm sure he is, and everyone else, y'all be nice. We've been listening to all the. Be nice, please. The dude wrote a lot of pages.
Yeah,
a lot of pages.
I'm really excited. I got some questions I wrote down, and some fun questions that I love to pick the brain of any author, but especially for Patrick Rothfuss. I'm really excited to get to talk to him. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, me too. So we have finished The Name of the Wind, and we're going to get into some of the nitty gritty of what everything that happened in the book and also how we feel about it. But I want to get in the chat, let us know what your rating for this book would be, what you thought. Was there something you wanted to see more of? Did you love it? Have you already read the second book because you're obsessed with it now? And then Maude, I know this is a reread for you, so let's start with you. How do you feel about book one now that you've read it with all of us?
I didn't think I could like this book more, but covering it for a book club with some of my best friends and talking about it and sharing perspectives and experiences whilst reading it has really, really added to this so much more. So thank you. Yeah, it's such a great book. I loved it, but I forgot the second book as well. I know things that happen in it, obviously, but
Are you going to read it now that the first one's fresh?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Are we going to read it for book club, do you think, though? I could hold out.
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
We'll have to see. I definitely want to read it. Hector, what about you?
I'm really glad that I read it. And I have loved having the discussions with you two and the chat, especially because there, like I said before, in the past couple of weeks, there was a certain point where I can't, pinpoint exactly, but there was a certain point where I was like, oh, I don't think I am connecting to this. I don't think I can connect to it for various reasons. Mm-hmm. And then the exercise for me became about why couldn't I? Why do I connect with some things? Why is this Maude's favorite book? Why is Rachel loving this? Why is the chat loving it or disliking it? And all of those conversations are so great and so helpful. And I'm really glad that I am familiar, at least for like a first time read through, with this story. And the other thing is, whether or not it happens, if and when it happens, I am absolutely interested in more than I ever would have been in any kind of adaptation. And I wonder if, because it's happened to me in the past with other stuff that I might not have connected to, an adaptation comes out and I can see I can see a visual and an audio representation of somebody's take on this material that I also experience, but in my own brain, I can see somebody else's artistic vision adding to it, enveloping it, and maybe it will unlock, more that was locked off to me in my brain. And then I will have an opportunity to then revisit and see how that changes and see how that works.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hector, why aren't you a director?
That's a great question.
Why
I
aren't you a
love it.
director? Why
I
aren't you
love
narrating
movies.
audiobooks? Why aren't you doing
Oh,
voice acting?
you're the sweetest. Why aren't you a life coach? You're the sweetest person in the world, Maude. You'd be a great life coach.
That's true.
No joke, honestly.
I
Or like,
agree.
I mean, you are already basically a therapist in many ways. You both of you are, and also this show ends up being our therapy and the after show and so on and so forth. But like, Maude, you give great advice, and I really appreciate that. No, I mean, it's true. I love film so much. I love movies so goddamn much.
See it.
Yes, I love that stuff. But I'm always fascinated by stories and how people create stories. After I finished the book, I looked up a bunch of Patrick Rothfuss interviews and like presentations and videos, and he seems like such a great grounded guy. He's talking to his audience and chatting with them, but like when he describes how he created the character of Quoth, I went, okay, that makes sense to me. When he described his influences and stuff, and I want to ask him about that kind of stuff later, but even having that context made me understand and appreciate what he did more. You know what I mean? When I hear the behind the scenes, and just before we started rolling here in Nerdist, we were talking about the making of WandaVision that was on Disney Plus, and how that like was so good that it made you want to rewatch the show. Like that's the kind of stuff that I love. So my summary is, even if the book didn't click with me and connect with me the way that it does for so many people, I'm really glad that I read it. The conversations have been invaluable. I'm interested in the world. I want to see an adaptation. I want to see this thing succeed, keep going. I can't wait to see what people think of the third book when it comes out. All of that stuff is really good. Rachel, what did you think of the book?
Let's see. I think by the end, I was leaning 4 out of 5 for most of it, and I kind of dipped a little bit at the end, which I'm sort of annoyed with myself for, because I did really enjoy it, and I don't want to be the kind of I feel like in my head I'm already arguing with myself about my opinion of it's fun to be in my head.
You don't like that the dragon was killed. That's what it is, right? You don't like that the dragon was killed.
I'm not a huge fan, but I do understand why. He got real dangerous at the end there. But it's more so, I don't need everything to be wrapped up in a bow ever in any kind of story. And I don't need necessarily, answers, but I do think I wish that there had been a little bit more at the end, even though, as people are saying in the chat, they realizing, and we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks, that the sub header for this book is day one. So it does make sense how it's structured. And I'm sure there's also a reason for all of these different things, but I wanted just like a little bit more at the end to kind of make anything start to gel in terms of the lore. But I am excited to read the second book. I quite liked it. And I feel like folks in the chat are saying the same thing, that, on the second read, they picked up more. So I'm sure after I do eventually read the second one, that I'll probably want to reread it. A lot of people are saying 4 out of 5, 5 out of 5, a couple 3 or 3.5 out of 5. So I think overall, most of us enjoyed a lot of different elements of it. And, having this kind of a sort of massive fantasy story that's just the beginning, your mileage is going to vary, I think.
Yeah, great comment from Game Wizard, sort of summing up what you're saying. 4 out of 5, because it feels like it is part one, that the book was of one thing cut into 3 parts, and this just feels like act 1. I'll most likely change after I read the other books. I mean, there is an element of if we had just read The Fellowship of the Ring, what rating would we give The Lord of the Rings? It's like, well, the story's not fully done yet, but
if you do get
yeah,
some sense, I think there's, and you do get, I guess, in this, there is sort of it does feel like we get to know how he says it's the beginning, right? He's starting, and there are multiple beginnings. Even in this section at the end of the first book that we read, he talks about this was the beginning of him sort of really chasing that feeling of being a hero, which I think is going to be a huge part of his character and potentially get him into even more trouble than he already does. And so I do see how that all is encompassed. I just wish I wanted to know a little bit more about the Chandrian, especially after the last section where I thought, okay, we're gonna, get to see what this artifact is. Maybe there'll be, and I'm sure there are clues that once I read the next book, I'll go back and be like, oh, all these descriptions that are on the vase and all of the legends and songs, maybe that will make sense. But my brain also always wants to like figure out what's going on, and I didn't get a lot to work with by the end.
Yeah,
which is
this
okay.
is definitely the origin story for sure.
Yeah.
As a young man, Madeline K says the last pages got me really interested in Bast.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the best Bast pages. The last pages were the best Bast pages.
The last.
The last of the Bast.
Yep. Miss Necromancer gave it a 5 out of 5, and Miss Necromancer said, I read so many series that the lack of finality or it only being a small section of the story really didn't bother me. That's true. That's true too. It's a part of a genre and of a whole industry that I'm sure there's so many examples of modern fantasy stories that are like part 1 of 3 or part 1 of 7, whatever it is. So yeah.
And that's all I've been reading recently, after Throne of Glass. And I do think that there are some of those that, I mean, my general preference is to have at least like a sub kind of story or something, and then the larger issue. But we do get so much out of this book. And I think people were saying that, where I saw a really good one, Game Wizard said, this feels like if Interview with the Vampire was longer and split into 3 books to tell it all. We got the childhood years, and we'll be going into his life after college. It's a little like the other books in the series with Lestat. You get like these, you could, I guess, break them up into smaller stories. But I still really, really enjoyed the book. And I think it's so smart, and definitely there are things that go way over my head, and I have yet to like dive into Reddit and all of the fun places where people will help me understand some of the clues.
Yeah.
I'll probably wait till the second book because I don't want to get spoiled. But let's talk about different things that happened in
Real
this
quick.
section. Yes.
There's a comment which I really love by Avery, who said the afterward talked about how this is the tale of a seemingly perfect kid framed by the story of a failure of a man. And that is such an interesting observation. I like that a lot.
Yeah, that's true. And I do. And I love what the whole book and presumably series is saying about stories, about storytelling, about storytellers,
about words
and yeah, naming and language, but also his story and even with the Dracus and how he the delay on the thing. I just saw Hector, you do this again, and I distracted myself. It was very funny.
Stick to the Zoom, Rachel.
I can't. You guys did not sleep last night, but I do think
You're doing great.
He's falling. He's like scrambling to try to save this town. And to the outside world, he does this like next level magic. He's threatening them and scaring them and trying to get them to tell him everything. And so he is showing himself as one thing, but we know that he's just like scrambling to figure this out and almost, bites it and miscalculates, I guess, the amount of resin you need to poison a Dracus by.
So I doubled it and then doubled it again. And then
doubled it. I know that. And I love the writing style too. I think he's such a beautiful, beautiful writer. What did y'all, and including in the chat, what did y'all think about how the sort of side quest of the Dracus and Denna and Kvothe, all of that wrap up. What did you think, Hector?
I want to see it visually. I think that the beautiful thing about this book is a thing that in certain sections would frustrate me or kind of get me to lose my patience a little bit, which is so much of the story is like, we're going to slow down, we're going to pause time, and Kvothe is going to tell you every single thought that he's having in this moment, whether it's action or not. And it's beautiful because you can understand his thought processes, his thought processes, his thought process, everything, processes. And I love that with knowing a character's thought process for some types of stories and stuff. And for me, the Dracus in my brain, I was like, is this like a big iguana? Like, is this like a big, like
That's the
chunky
vibe I
boy?
got.
Yeah, it's almost like an iguana from like a pet cage, but just blown up to, this just like this weird, thing. So there were times where I wanted to see something visually happen, just because I know that if this were to be adapted or whatever, that it would be super speedy quick compared to, and it's because Kvothe is either like, here's the other thing too. How do you guys interpret the story that is being told that Kvothe is narrating? Like, is he literally saying every single one of those words to the chronicler, including little things like he said, she said, those things that you're like, no, I don't know if he would speak like that. That's not how you relay stories. You don't relay them as though you're an author. If I'm talking about, oh, Maude said the funniest thing the other day, I'm not saying like, so I stepped into the room and I saw Maude there and she took a moment and took a breath. And then when she turned to me,
Maybe you don't.
I mean, maybe Kvothe does. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, is every word of this being written down by the chronicler? And the audiobook takes 27 hours. So I'm like, so in this world of,
Fast.
yeah, in the world of Treborn or whatever the land is, I'm like, do they have longer than a 24-hour day? Is that what it is? They have like a 36-hour day? What's the...
But we have the frame narrative chunks. Like the first whole part of the book is not being written down, so that would
True.
sort of work.
Go right. That's like in real time, whatever that means, in real time as things are progressing.
Well, and there
But
is this sort of oral history of these types of fantasy worlds too, and so I think when you're a bard and a performer and all of those types of things as well.
yeah, it's Sherlock.
Yeah.
Even the Robert Downey Sherlock movie, it's like, you like stop slowing down time while we go into his brain where he's like, I'm going to do this, punch this guy, move this here, and then the things are executed in that way. So that whole section was fun, but it was also moments of me being like, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
But then it reminded me of like The Hobbit, where what's his name from Lake Town takes down Smaug, like in that whole thing. And even it's just like visually really interesting. Yeah, Smaug. So I think I liked it. I think that the side quest was, although it didn't quite feel like it was maybe the most organic, like it didn't have the most setup organically within the narrative, it still didn't quite feel like the most random side quest just to go and get Kvothe. The way that character made those choices to go do that, who he met along the way, Denna, everything that happened, and then all of the aftermath still felt like it fed back into the narrative, especially when the falling action is like, he goes back to college and I had to do this and this, and then this, and then that, I'm like, okay, this is not a completely, he didn't kill the dragon, end of book one. And you're like, wait, what happened to all of the stuff in his life beforehand? No, right? Rothfuss is telling you he missed lunch. He has to make up for classes and, all this other stuff. So that whole side quest was a highlight of the book for me, for sure.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I just wanted, and this is a me thing. This is not a the book thing, but I was like, okay, and it makes sense too, because Kvothe feels the same way, where he wants everything to kind of all roads lead back to the Chandrian for him, and he's trying to figure this out. And I'm frustrated, and he's frustrated because he's not really learning that much more. But I did think that this section was really great in developing Denna and his relationship with Denna. And I definitely want to talk about that next, because I saw yet another great comment from Miss Necromancer, who said it in the Geekbomb patron chat, which everyone should join. But this section made me realize why online hates Denna, the nice guy syndrome. Kvothe is her friend while she has other men romantically and gives her friendship, while other guys don't. And while Rothfuss wouldn't fall into that trope, since the whole book is anti-trope, the online nice guys see themselves in this situation, since a lot of pop culture dudes unfortunately fall into that misogynistic category. So Denna is an avatar of a girl in their own lives who they feel owes them sex because he was a good friend. I could not say it better. As that relationship was described, I was like, I believe Kvothe actually wants to be her friend.
Well, he states that clearly in the book. He goes, my strength and my bond that I have with her.
People sometimes think that is how they feel, and then their behavior says otherwise. So. But that's I do believe that he really thinks, like, I would rather have this friendship with her than mess this up somehow. I do believe that, but I can totally see where
it's a little
that would be interpreted very differently.
A little Jim and Pam, I think, a little bit. It's a little bit of Jim Halpert being like, well, Pam Beasley and I are friends, and I know her better than her fiance. You know, I actually know her, and I respect her, and I care about her, and I love her, and her sense of humor, and here comes the fiance.
Reciprocated. It's clearly
correct. So it's like, and then
it's not just him waiting around for you to.
Correct. It's reciprocated, and what a great, the great love story of that TV show, the U.S. Office, is that, like, they end up getting together and married and have kids and stuff. It's very sweet, but it is that, like, oh, this woman's unavailable, but really I love her. Okay, man.
It's a fine.
She's unavailable.
Yeah, I think it's just a fine line of, much like, you know, everything has so much nuance, but flirtation, if it's reciprocated, is very different than if it's not, or if it's in a different dynamic, then where flirting may not be appropriate. So it really is about that, and they do have this connection, and she clearly wants him in her life, and but I can absolutely see where the internet and you know, the concept that someone is a tease or things like that, I can see where that would come from.
Straight up. Maude, do Kvothe and Denna end up together?
Don't you dare tell me.
Oh, I can read her facial expressions like a book. Oh boy, I know exactly what happens. Thanks, Maude. Great. No, you said you didn't even remember. So,
but I know that answer.
Okay.
It is interesting though, just how many people not only read this book in time, read ahead, but have now nearly finished the second book.
That's
looking
amazing.
at you, Adam Tulos.
That's amazing.
Just like loving it.
Wow. And Nick Swing 38 also says, I liked the Drakus because it was building the mythos of Kvothe the legend, which I really like also in this book, and I imagine it carries over into the second as he gets bolder and more powerful. But that all these little moments, including that he, you know, burned down the town, all of the stuff that has been peppered throughout his legend overall, we get to see behind the curtain of this, you know, overly cocky, very talented, but, you know, emotionally not quite as mature as his powers are, and seeing all of that play out, which leads us to Ambrose. Hector, what did you think of the Ambrose scene? And in the chat, I really loved this scene.
I was I don't know. I think I thought it was okay. I think I was a little more intrigued, but also kind of frustrated with the final moments where Kvothe is wrapping up the day, and he's like, I thought he was going to try again, but months went by and he didn't do anything. So then I thought maybe he learned his lesson. Maybe we were cool. Like maybe he was going to keep his distance and it was going to be fine. But nope, of course not. And the next time he got me, I was caught unawares and expelled. Anyway, I'll tell you about it tomorrow. So I'm kind of like,
I
"Gah,
love that. I love that nugget drop.
bruh,
So good.
jeez Louises.
It's the carrot though. He dangled the carrot for that one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
liked that because I felt like we got a lot with Ambrose in this, so I didn't feel like,
right.
you know, and by this point I felt used to Kvothe's kind of style of like, but we'll get to that later. I was like, oh,
I know it's funny because
a
sometimes
little
he's
jerk.
he's so verbose, but other times there's these moments of brevity where he's just like, I'll talk about it later. And I'm just like, oh, come on, man.
What, you're gonna stop talking now?
Yeah, now?
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'll buy the second book. Fine, Quoth. I'll show up.
Loved this part of we're back in college, my favorite place. I felt like the side quest went a little too long. I liked that they had their moments together. I loved the sense of we're dissecting Quoth as a hero, right? There is a moment where Denner is really participating in, like, involuntarily in a way, in extreme vulnerability, and that is being under the effects of a drug. That Quoth knows exactly step by step what effects this will have on her. And I feel that the way he handled that, nurture, care, prioritized her, looked after her, didn't take advantage of her. She was getting flirty and handsy with him. And he's just like, no. That is that's what I think a hero is. And I hate that that's the standard and that's the bar.
I was gonna say the bar's so low.
But that's a hero.
Yeah, that's the bar. That's you know what's funny? That's one of the best things about the original Austin Powers movie, that Mike Myers wrote this insane over the top cartoon of a character that's not even a real man, a spoof on old James Bond and like old Michael Caine spy British things, and just very sleazy guy and sleeps with everybody. But when Elizabeth Hurley's character is drunk, he's like, no, it's not right. It's not right, babe. You smashed. It's not right. And I remember seeing that as a kid in 1997 and being like, okay, like that really is truly like, it's like Maude said, that's the bar, and it's bare minimum, but it is a heroic thing for a guy to do, not
and
take
yet
advantage
it's
of a woman.
still a struggle
Yeah.
for many.
Yep.
I did like in that moment that it was weaving the tale. I loved the big thing that I want to talk about in this particular section. And now that we've finished the book, I can really explore it with you all. And that is book 1, The Name of the Wind, naming words, information. This is all the academia side of things. This is all about articulating and learning the power of word. What kind of word? He's learning about science. He's learning about sympathy. He's learning, like, it's all like a conductive education. He's also learning the power of the rumor, which is a form of word. Rumor. And he's using that and manipulating that, and he's like using that towards his end goal as well. So there's different facets of the word, and then learning what to say to a woman as well. And I think it's like 2 or 3 times it's mentioned there are 7 words to make a woman fall in love with you. And this is again talking and reinforcing the power of word. And that's what book 1 is. I don't want to give too much away about book 2, but if we've covered brains, the next book we must be covering
the libido.
Brawn.
There it is. And I think that, like, just taking a step back and looking at the display of these 2 books, it's so interesting. I think the biggest lesson that I've learned from this one this time around is that is the focus of book 1, being the name of the wind. And so
what do you think the focus of book 3 is going to be, if you don't already know? If it's brains, brawn, what's the third thing in that? Booty. Okay, great.
Brains, brawn.
The most important, the 3 B's, the most important thing.
Three B's.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. Great.
There you go.
Yes.
2 office references. Wow.
No, look at you.
I do want to say about this Ambrose part though. Like, even though we went on a bit of a side venture and I was like, okay, and then we get back to school, and it's always this sort of like, was it Michelle who brought it up last week, or maybe it was Kate who said it was 2 steps forward, 20 steps back, and then like trying to fumble the way through it again. Fantastic. But in this instance, when he calls the name of the wind, and it's malfeasance, and he hurts Ambrose, and Ambrose, who has a lot of reputation, he's got a lot of influence,
Money and
takes
power.
him to takes him to the what is it? The banners, takes him to the
I
what are they called?
don't know, the Masters
Yeah.
little area. I forget the name.
That entire exchange,
Ironic.
but then also having the chapter end at his expulsion and then coming back through. So I was listening to this as I was falling asleep. Like I listened and then I have it stop at the end of the chapter. And when that stopped, I was like, no. And then I put a second chapter on and I'm like in bed screaming and hooping and like, yes, and like giddy at this moment. I loved it so much. And I'm obviously talking about the part where he doesn't get expelled and then he gets, this is after getting 19 talents from him to repay for not only the theft, but breaking of the same item. But then also being made Rayla. Oh my gosh, what a fantastic moment.
Well, I think that's also the power of words and learning, that he's learning the structure of the school and its rules and how to make them work for him. And I feel like, especially in the middle sections when he's first starting out at school, he isn't sure what he can test as much. But I do think it is almost like emotional whiplash, because when he does summon the name of the wind, that scene broke my heart because of basically that Ambrose breaks his lute again, and it's the sound that the lute made when his dad's lute finally broke, which was when he was in like the deepest grief.
Yep.
And so that like trigger his PTSD theoretically.
His silenced mind, like he's quite
exactly. It just,
but also the fact that extreme, like that triggering snapped something in him that he couldn't gain control over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are, because I'm always going to look for little clues and hints, there are elements to the frame narrative that make me wonder, who has his name or is controlling over him, or where did his alar and sympathy go? Can other people do sympathy still? Because Bast is lighting, doing things, manual. I'm wondering what the world looks like now and why he's hiding away. But going from that low and kind of that scary place that he goes to where he can't control himself, he's both like numb and out of control, to then this incredible high where you're like, oh God, is he already getting expelled from the school? Because that would be a big end to this book for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then having them vote against him and then postpone it, I thought was a really well done, because it definitely takes you on that emotional roller coaster, but also shows that they're also willing to kind of fudge the rules when they think that the Masters, when they think it's a good idea overall.
Who do you picture anybody? Do you cast anybody as the very eccentric mentor that was talking to him in that scene and was like, take a walk with me and talking
Elodin?
to him? Yeah. What kind of vibes do you get with an Elodin? Because I was getting like a mix of like, yeah, but I was still getting a mix of like Merlin from Sword in the Stone mixed with like a really kooky older mentor, but like a skinny guy, like down here, like I don't know what type of, but I was getting a very, very eccentric vibe from the fact that he was trying to explain to Kvothe what this was, and he was like, what are you talking about? If you can understand something, you can describe it. And he goes, okay, what color's the sky? Blue. Okay, but describe that. And he was like stuck, and he's like, oh, blue, just blue. Like, how can you describe? And I guess at this point in his story, he has not yet learned how to describe colors to a blind man. Eventually he will, because he's that good.
You'll never
I'm never going to let it go. But that's the origin of that. He was like, I'm going to learn how to describe colors. But that was a fun scene.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking of like an Edward Norton.
I could see that. I could see that. We got a James McAvoy in the chat. James McAvoy.
That would be good too. I feel
Very
like
good.
I'm thinking of like very dramatic, intense actors who can then be in really quirky, like Wes Anderson. I was thinking of Wes Anderson movies.
Bruce
but,
Willis, definitely Bruce Willis. Yeah, I'm in agreement, Rachel. Yeah.
If you haven't seen it yet, if you go to the Geekbomb reading section, Michelle has drafted up 3 pages of fan casting with images and names.
I can't wait. I'm really bad.
Really outstanding.
Here's the perfect one. Nathan S. pinpointed exactly what I was thinking, and I couldn't place it. Specifically, Merlin from the movie Shrek the Third, where he is a mentor to a Justin Timberlake voiced Arthur, who is like a skinny. He almost looks like the wizard from Where's Waldo. If you guys remember Where's Waldo, or I think internationally Where's Wally. I think is
Where's Wally? Yeah,
that's what. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Maude. Yeah, he's Wally. Weird, right?
Wally.
It's weird.
That's too much.
What's Waldo's arch enemy's name internationally? Because in the United States or North America, whatever, it's Waldo is the good guy, and his evil twin is Oddlaw, because that's Waldo spelled backwards. And it's funny because it's the word odd and law put together, as though he is at odds with the law, because he's the bad
really
guy,
good.
striped black
You
and
have
yellow.
that
What's his?
saved in your head?
I do, absolutely. I'm a useless man. I'm a useless grown man.
I also I just don't have that useless information.
I had to go buy a car battery because it died because I forgot to turn on my car while it's sitting in the driveway. But I remember the name of Waldo's arch enemy.
It's still Oddlaw.
That doesn't make any sense, Maude. If his name is Wally, his enemy's name should be like Yellow or something. Like that's
because he was wearing black and yellow.
Thank you. It should be Wally backwards. Yes. Yes.
You've torn this conspiracy wide open.
Oh my God. Don't worry. When I produce a Where's Waldo movie, live action movie, I'll make sure that it's Where's Waldo live action. I'll make sure that it's Where's Wally internationally, and I'll make the villain name make sense for those territories. It'll be a philosopher, sorcerer, stone situation. It'll be great.
Like Mario's nemesis is Wario.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But also what
does that mean? My nemesis is going to be
Wad. Wah, it's a me, Wad. Wad Garrett. Oh, that person's awful. I much prefer Maude.
Not at all.
But
I mean,
Wad,
I guess that's what you want from a villain. One more good fan casting, and then I want to talk about Bast and the archives and final thoughts. But a couple other really good ones. And now I've lost it. Oh, Robert Sheehan, who is Klaus in the Umbrella Academy. I can see that well.
I like Michael Sheen.
Michael Sheen would be great.
Excellent.
You want to see Michael Sheen just chew up the scenery in
Tron
a
Legacy.
show. Oh, that too. But he's on a show called Prodigal Son.
Yeah.
That's a serial killer father son, and then it's just the campiest. I can't wait till it comes back in April because I'm watching it and they're just so silly. It's like if Hannibal was just full camp. And
it's not. Hannibals not camp.
Like, the other kind of. Anyway.
Okay, got it.
So we have Ambrose. Oh, Matt Mercer is a great idea too.
Elodin.
Matt Mercer. He, of course, cool.
Pretty sure he has on Critical Role done a voice that I would be like, that's perfect for Elodin. I'm sure he's already played a character like that. Elodin.
Emphasis on O.
Elodin.
The emphasis on the wrong
syllable.
Wad. I'm a Wad Garrett. Wad. Terrible at interviews. Really mean. Gives terrible advice.
Really small.
Really small. Like Laura Dern interview, it's a train wreck. Don't look it up because Wad Garrett just biffed it with Laura Dern. Laura Dern's like, "Are you serious?" That's how that interview ends. Wad Garrett's like, "Wah, do you like dinosaurs?" And you're like, "This is the worst interviewer in the world."
That's amazing.
That's great.
Oh my God, I'm gonna cry.
I just need some fan art of a Wad Garrett, please. Somebody.
Oh, that's got to be in progress,
Yeah.
right?
Thank you. Screen cap that, add a squiggly mustache and a purple outfit. You're done. No, yellow. That's right.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Let's talk about Bast and the kind of framework at the end and sort of the interrupting of the story by this possessed, like we've met this man before when he very politely robbed the chronicler,
yeah.
but now he's possessed. He's got crumbling iron.
I'm looking.
Look.
Yeah, that was creepy. That
Yeah.
actually got me a little bit.
But I was like, aren't they all supposed to be like? Isn't he supposed to be smart?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about the sort of rumors of the demons and everything and the timeline. I can't figure out how long it's been since Kvoth was in school because he's befriended ends up being around, characters that have longer lifespans. He's got this legendary life. I'm not sure, but it does feel like very far removed from the time that he's speaking about. I feel like maybe it's because, the average, villager and townsfolk already don't trust the arcanist. So it might just be that, and they're superstitious, but it does feel weird. Like there is something, like his power has been drained, following the magician's route where all magic disappears. The couple kind of things that I thought were hinted at, but
he's dulled. Like
yeah.
I see Kvothe in colors because his eyes are a rich green and his hair is a flame red. And I feel like the saturation, maybe Hector can show me, but the saturation has just gone all the way down, and he's just like keep it going all the way down. And Kvothe is just like he's just like black and white at the bar, and he's lost all of his spark, and he's just so dull. And we want to get Kvothe back up. We want to get him back to who he used to be and put some color back in him, That's all we want.
Somewhere in here. Somewhere in here. There we go. There's some color. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I could see that. It does feel a little bit, to your point, Rachel, it does feel a little bit like when you watch the Star Wars prequels and then you watch the original Star Wars movies again, and they're like, Jedi, I thought they were a myth. And you're like, bro, it was 30 years ago. How that thing of like, what part of the galaxy are we in? Is it a lot of just like old fashioned people? And maybe that's where Kvothe settled down in this bar where it's on the outskirts of, that's the other thing too. That setting of like, oh, okay, maybe my contrast is a little.
But I mean, Star Wars has holocrons and like you're able to, blast data across the galaxy. But in the fantasy land, it's just word of mouth. So when you're on the outskirts and you rely
or something.
And there's so many hints towards this. It's like he hardly has any customers. It's the same people regurgitating very similar information. And the more we hear Cobb tell a story after knowing the actual events that took place, the more we realize that it's totally butchered and like 10% fact at this stage. We know that he is not the same person that he used to be. Bast obviously knew who he was and is seeing him deteriorate at a rapid rate to the point where he feels like if he doesn't intervene in a very drastic way, he is going to lose his master friend forever.
But it was strange to me that he's scary. That was a scary scene. I can't really tell now. Obviously, I think that he wants to bring Kvothe back, but the fact that he's telling him not to dwell on the dark side and to only dwell on the heroic side gave me pause, because I feel like I don't know. I feel like either he's trying to protect him from something that already got him once, that sucked him into something, or we're going to end up with a character who isn't remembering why he ended up here and what he's learned, almost, that he's going so far down this, like, I'm the hero, I'm the legend path. I don't know. It just gave me, I was not expecting that, for sure. I thought that was a frustrating but exciting way to kind of end the story of like, what? You're totally different.
Love makes you do crazy things, Rachel. And I 1000% feel like Bast is in love with Kvothe. That's how it read to me. It felt very much like, I'm sure you guys are familiar, and maybe the youngins watching might not be, but the movie Romeo plus Juliet, 1996, Baz Luhrmann directed it, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, right? Kate Winslet? No, not Kate Winslet. Claire Danes.
Claire Danes.
Sorry, I confused with Titanic. Harold Perrineau played Mercutio. And his take on Mercutio was like, he is straight up in love with Romeo. 100%, which is a valid reading of that text. And it's my favorite thing about that film, and that performance is really great. And I feel like that's Bast. That were you just doing a Claire Danes impression, Maude? Was that a Claire Danes impression?
No, I was saying a plague on both your houses.
Oh, very nice. Yes, very nice. So that's what I think Bast's deal is, because when Chronicler was pushing him on it, what do you get out of this? And he was like, I just want my, what was his nickname for him? Like Reshi. I just want my Reshi back. I'm like, you love him. You're in love with him. That's sad.
I like that reading. I can totally see that. I do think Game Wizard also is saying it feels a little WandaVision-esque. Thoth is putting himself in a safe place to kind of hide from what happened to him. And so that's my concern too.
And is the Chronicler is like Monica Rambeau, like somebody coming in and like,
I don't know if I'd go that far.
I'm going to say, just because Ty's now resorted to using caps, there is a novella which is all about Bast. It's called The Lightning Tree. I didn't even know about this. So thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. It was published in 2014. It's 93 pages long. So it's just a little excerpt of the story.
Where does it lie?
In the timeline.
It is.
Has to be a prequel to Name of the Wind. Has to be a prequel.
I think it begins right. It's here we are. Patrick Rothfuss's The Lightning Tree is a short novella which events take place roughly a month before the beginning of The Name of the Wind. And it sheds a little light on Bast's life in nowhere.
I bet you the opening line is, I'm in love with Kvothe. Hi, I'm Bast. Here's my story.
Stop staring.
You're probably wondering how I got here.
You're probably wondering how, like, record scratch, I'm Bast.
Hi, I'm Bast.
Adaptation of Name of the Wind.
It'd be terrible. Oh boy.
That's not a record scratch. Final thoughts before we dive into homework, what we want to see potentially from the next one. Also a good comment from Thierry. Bast is like Salim in American Gods, looking for his Jinn. I like that too, that he's just loves him. I just worry that when you love someone that much and you're trying to, I just feel like there's this inherent dangerous thing besides obviously all the creatures like hovering over them, and maybe a reason why he is cut off from his power and the world, and worry that maybe unleashing that is also not a great thing. I don't know. Maybe it's too much WandaVision. No such thing.
I'm very curious about that as well. Like I said, I just think Bast is in love with Kvothe, but let
them smooch.
I'm interested in their backstory and how they met.
Same.
You know, like I love Rogue One and Cassian Andor and K2SO, but they made a comic book that shows how they met, and it's great. And it's like those kinds of things you want to know when you meet those two characters.
Except for when it was Han Solo and Chewbacca.
Not your favorite? Send him to the Beast. The Beast? And then they took a shower. That was cute.
Han
Solo. There was something else I wanted to talk about. The archive, getting into the library.
Oh yeah.
We got to talk about that. I was really like interested in this long back and forth when Kvothe was like, why isn't this place organized? My first thought was like, that's the first thing you've said I agree with, brother. Why isn't this place organized? Let's organize it. Let's categorize it. Let's Dewey Decimal System this mother. And then
Bella's explanation.
Yes. Which was, I was also like, oh, that is a problem, but it's a challenge. And it immediately made me want to like go and organize my books or something. My anxiety kicked in where I was
My
like,
collectibles.
I gotta help with my collectibles. But were you guys at all? I mean, Rachel, were you disappointed in Maude? How do you feel on the reread that like he gets in there, but still no answers really yet? And
Well,
that's gonna happen.
I was like, okay, that kind of sucks. But A, I'm glad he doesn't have everything handed to him. And
True.
B, he loses his whole subplot about going underground, going into the billows, and then having that information to use to get out of his debt to Debbie. So it's a crucial thing that we
True.
need.
Absolutely.
And I love that Lauren is stoic about this rule. And like,
Mhm.
you know, the first question that he asks Elodin is like, now I'm Rayla, do I get access? And he's like, yeah, no, that doesn't, you got banned. Like that is an unbreakable thing and that you have
Yep.
to wait. Patience, young Padawan.
Mhm.
And he said, nope.
Yeah,
This
that
has
was
gotten me this far. I'm gonna keep doing it. This probably won't have any consequences later.
that was the character Fella, right? Was that who that was? Who was helping him with the
Yeah, I
where
like
he
her.
went, yeah, he went
I
and
like
got her
her.
and was like, I need you to help me. It did remind me of like there have been times where I'll have something organized and my girlfriend or somebody would be like, why is this over here and not over here? And I'll be like, well, I've thought about it. I've
So
thought about it
Hector is
entirely
male
too much.
fella.
Yes.
Did you
Yes.
identify with fella in this book?
Not until that moment. I was still a little stuck on the audiobook because her name is Fela, which when I read it feels like a fantasy name. It feels like it would be the name of a character that like Link would encounter in Hyrule. Like it feels like it fits. But when it's read to me in an audiobook, it just sounds like they're saying fella, like, hey fella, come here. And I'm
Oh.
like, I'm like, I feel like something's lost in the, and I don't know if her name is supposed to be pronounced any other way because it's Fela, so it's going to be fella. But I feel like putting the emphasis on it, like it should almost sound like a foreign name to make it sound like a
Fella.
fantasy. Do you see? Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like if I were to say it with like a Spanish accent, it'd be like, hey, aquí ven, fella, ven acá, and it's like fella sounds different than fella, which is like, which sometimes is how the book was hitting me. So, but I did relate to her at that last section. Yeah, that was great.
Okay.
Yeah, I also love and have to remind myself that he is 15, as folks are saying in the chat too, that when he realizes, oh God, I was just in fella's room and she was
She's naked and so
Yeah.
hot.
what's happening? Just like you forget that he's like a teenage boy and people in the chat are absolutely picking up on the fact that it's like, well, what 15-year-old isn't, you know, impulsive and not thinking about the consequences. And I certainly didn't. But that's it for now. But we are going to be speaking with Patrick Rothfuss. So if you have questions, make sure to join us. And of course, we have homework for you. So over the next 6 weeks, we're reading Lee Bardugo's fantasy trilogy,
Boom.
Shadow and Bone. Hector, will you do the honors of reading? Because I know you were asking what this was about. Will you read the quick summary before we hit our homework?
Yeah, I just got my trilogy. Got it in the mail.
Looks good.
Here's the no, you know what? Maude should do it. What am I doing? It's
Maude.
Maude. Maude, don't do it in your WAD voice, but just do it regular Maude.
I am that Maude.
Please don't. Wad is not a host of this show.
WAD is the worst. We all hate WAD. Just let's hear Maude, please. We hate WAD. Thank you.
Surrounded by enemies, the once great nation of Ravka has been torn into two by the Shadow Fold, a swath of near impenetrable darkness crawling with monsters who feast on human flesh. Now its fate may rest on the shoulders of one lonely refugee. In a war-torn world, lowly soldier and orphan Alina Starkov has just unleashed an extraordinary power that could be the key to setting her country free. With the monstrous threat of the Shadowfold looming, Alina is torn from everything she knows to train as part of an elite army of magical soldiers known as Grisha. But as she struggles to hone her power, she finds that allies and enemies can be one and the same, and that nothing in this lavish world is what it seems.
beautifully done. And we'll be reading the whole trilogy over the next couple of weeks, just in time for the adaptation coming to Netflix with an amazing cast. Super excited. We'll be chatting about that show after we finish all of the books, once we've all had time to watch some of it. And your homework is to read Shadow and Bone, chapters 1 through 12. Stop at chapter 13. Make sure you send all of your questions and thoughts to us on Twitter using hashtag Nerdist Book Club. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in a few minutes for our interview with Patrick Rothfuss. Click on the link. Come join us, 6:15. We'll see you there.
Bye.
Bye.